Hey there, it's me, Nate, and today I want to talk about a game I just finished, which was Mafia the Old Country. I just finished this a few hours ago, and I just want to give you guys my overall thoughts and impressions in this little review. So, this came out August 8th of last year in 2025 for PS5, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. I played it on PS5 on my PS5 Pro, and it ran fine. I didn't have any crashes or any issues like that. And this was developed by Hangar 13 and published by 2K. Now this is the fourth Mafia game and the first in the timeline. This is a prequel to all the other games. So even if you haven't played any of the Mafia games, you don't need to play this game. You can just jump straight into this. I've actually tried all of the Mafia games because I like Mafia type stories, and I've tried all of the previous games, and I just bounced off of each one of them. They can never grab me. But this game, I went all the way through and had a good time. So this is a linear, semi-open zone-ish kind of action game. Think like Uncharted. I can't think of the name of it, but the Uncharted game with Nadine and Chloe. It's kind of like that game in terms of the zones. It's a bit bigger than that, but when you're playing through the actual story, you're kind of you're always on mission. There's never a time where you're kind of in between missions where you can just freely explore the open world. But you have the free ride option in the main menu where you can just go explore the open world and just do whatever you want. Let's see. And as for the rest of the gameplay, it's like Uncharted or other games of the style, or like Naughty Dog games. It's you have third person shooting, there's stealth sections, a lot of driving missions, things like that. I'll get into my deeper thoughts about the gameplay here in a minute, a bit shortly later. But first of all, let's talk about what the game is about, its basic plot. And so, in this, it follows the story of Enzo, who is our main protagonist, and you start out as this slave or indentured servant that works down in this mine shaft owned by the Spadaro family, which is one of the Mafia families here in Sicily in this valley region. And you were sold off to the mine to be a worker by your father when you were just a child, and now you pick up at the beginning of Mafia: The Old Country. I think Enzo was supposed to be in his late teens or early 20s. He's a young man, but you escape from the mines and you encounter the Torrisi family who take you in, and the game follows Enzo's journey over the span of years as he goes, from this escaped mine worker to, a farmhand to a made man in the Torrisi family, and all of the things that happen in his life along the way. So that's a basic general plot of Mafia: The Old Country. And I think one of the main selling points as we get into the pros, what's great about this game, is the characters. And so Enzo, he wants to after having escaped the mine, he starts out just wanting to have solid work, a place to live, being able to eat and support himself. But as his journey progresses, he starts wanting more and starts wanting different things. And it's really interesting to see, his journey as he goes, and his regrets and how his feelings change about things that he's doing. One of the characters that for the early chapters, you get introduced to pretty early in is Luca, who is Don Teresi's right hand man. And for Enzo, he kind of serves as like this mentor figure, like an older brother type figure to him and the rest of the Teresi family. Like he, always executes on the Don's orders and always takes care of all of the Don's problems. Alongside Tino, who is kind of like the nobody likes Tino, but he's like that guy and like always like in a crime story that you see. It's like nobody likes him, but he's the one that does the dirty things for the boss. So like Luca and Tino are like the two hands of Don Teresi. And then we have Cesare, who is Don Teresi's nephew, and he's like this like wild, drinking playboy type, partying character, and everybody, doesn't really take him super seriously, but they can't treat him too disrespectfully because he is the Don's nephew. And when you first meet him, he just comes off to like as a real asshole to Enzo, but over time they kind of develop this friendship and this relationship that expands as the game progresses. And along with with Cesare, one of the other close characters to Enzo is Isabella, who is the daughter of Don Teresi and Enzo's like love interest. And it is kind of like a Romeo and Juliet kind of like love story between the two. It's like, you have Enzo, who is basically like, I guess it's like an Aladdin love story where it's like Enzo is kind of like considered like a street rat, like a gutter rat, where he's like comes from nothing, and then Isabella as a Don's daughter is almost seen as like a quasi nobility, or she is like the princess of the family, that she can't be touched. And so it is kind of this like Romeo and Juliet, like this forbidden lovers kind of situation between the two. And like even outside of that, she is like she's a fun character. She's like she's curious about the world. She's like outgoing and smart. But she wants to be like independent of her father. She doesn't just want to be like a like a housewife that's just like supposed to just like be quiet and follow orders. Like she wants to have like a life of her own. And then you would think centrally to the game we would have Don Teresi, and he is important to the story, of course, but really it's not until late in the game that we get a whole lot of him. I feel like for like 80% of the game he doesn't get a whole lot of screen time. It's like mostly some combination of Enzo, Luca, and Cesare doing things, and we might get like a few sentences here and there from the Don until like later in the game. I feel like he's extremely underutilized, and by the time we get more of him later in the game, compared to a lot of the other characters, he's like really uninteresting and shallow. He doesn't have the time to be developed. I think that's one of the failings of the game's story, is that we don't get enough time with the Don, and especially we don't have like a whole lot again until like later in the game. We don't have a whole lot of interaction between the Don and Enzo. I mean, which I guess does make sense because like the Don is the head of the family, and Enzo starts out as it's just like basically like a stable boy worker on the vineyard, until he becomes a made man. So I guess it does make sense that there would be a whole lot of interaction. But by the ending of the game, I did feel like the impact that I had with the Don was like lesser because we didn't have a whole lot of time with him. But overall, I love the characters in the game. I think they're all pretty good. And as I mentioned earlier, the plot of the game is like Enzo's journey through like this mafia life. And and I think that journey is like great to follow. So like I think the overall story of the game is great, and so the characters and story, they're all intertwined because it is like a character drama. Like Mafia stories are oftentimes a character drama because it's stories of like love and betrayal and like murders and secrets. And I think it all works together in a really good way. For the most part, I do have one con about the story, and I'll get into it when we talk about like the cons, like the negatives of the game. But continue on with like our positives. I think the setting is great. So this takes place in like early 1900s Sicily, in this valley, and I think it's beautiful. Like when you're driving your car through this valley, or you're on horseback through the valley, it's beautiful and it's lush with like these small but like really not incredible looking architecture, these homes, and then you have like the vineyards for all the wine, because this is like wine country, and you just see these fields of vineyards, and it's really pretty. It's really nice to look at. Some of the like the vistas that you come across as you're going through the story, it really helps like ground you in the space of like a classic Mafia story. And I really appreciated that, like that attention to detail and the environment, and I think that that really pushed things forward. And along with like the setting, as far as graphics go, I think they're pretty good. I think they're pretty solid. Definitely not gonna like, they're not the most beautiful game I've played, because I played this on performance mode, which was, I think for PS5 Pro it's like 4K 60. I could have played it on did I say performance? I meant quality. I played it on quality mode, which is like I think 4K 60 or something like that, and then I keep on messing this up. So okay, I played in quality mode 4K 60, and then the performance mode I think is 1080 120. I started out in performance, and I thought that the textures looked a little rough, so I switched back over to quality, and I liked that a lot more. So I played the entire game in quality mode, and it was fine. But if you're playing on just base PS5, I would recommend performance mode. And then let's see. Sorry if you notice me looking down a lot. Just checking my notes. And yeah, that's all of my positives for the game. Now, as for the negatives, so the overall gameplay, I think, is pretty rough, and which is a big thing to say, but let me be specific. I think the gameplay feels a bit archaic. It feels like an old PS3 game that you're dusting off. Like you just took out your PS3 or 360 and you're going back and playing some game. That's what Mafia: The Old Country feels like. It feels like a game from like 2007 that you dust off and you hooking up your old console back up and you're playing it. But so it feels like one of those, but just with just 4K graphics and higher frame rates. That's essentially what the gameplay is of Mafia: The Old Country. And let me be more specific. So the gunplay in this game, I think is pretty bad. Anytime I was in combat situations, it never felt good. The combat always felt like something I had to get through, so that way I could go ahead and experience more of the story, more of the character interactions. Combat was never something that I looked forward to, like at all, in the entire game. And then you have the knife fights, which are kind of like the boss fights that cap off like a lot of the chapters of the game. And these are okay. They're never fun. They're pretty easy. I played the game on normal. I didn't play on hard. I guess if I wanted more challenge, I could have played on hard, but I don't think the gameplay is like good enough to play on hard. To be completely honest, I thought about putting the game on easy just so I could get through the gameplay faster, but I just went ahead and went through it all on normal. But if I did have the recommendation, I actually would probably say put the difficulty on easy, so that we can just get through the combat and stuff faster to get through the story, because that's like the good crunchy stuff. And let's see. But yeah, that's those knife fights. They're okay. As for the stealth gameplay, I think the stealth works, but it's super easy and it's not really satisfying because the enemy AI in this game is dumb as bricks. Like I never had any issues with it, but it was just really easy. There were many times where I was like, I should have been caught there, but I'm not, because the enemy AI, it's like even though I could be standing in clear eyesight of a person, the enemy AI only has a vision cone of probably, I think, 20 feet, if I had to guess. It's pretty small. So you can definitely abuse that and get through these stealth situations really easily. And I think the driving sections in this game, whenever you're driving a car, it always feels kind of jerky. And there's a lot of a lot of the roads in this game, they're all like dirt roads, and there's all very hard turns, or a lot of corners that are hard to turn on. It could just be me though. I'm not the biggest fan of driving cars in games, so that might just be my own personal failings. But that was just my thoughts on it. And then my other negative of the game is kind of like the ending, the wrap up to the story. I think is it comes off a little bit weak, because as you're going through the last, when you hit that 75-80% mark, when you're reaching those last couple chapters towards the ending, it feels like you can you pretty much have a feeling or have an idea of what's going to happen, how it's going to work out. And then I reached the ending, and it went down pretty much like how I expected it to. Because it feels like it kind of ends and wound up like how most Mafia stories do, which I'm not going to spoil here, but I feel like as you play the game, you pretty much see how it's all going to work out, and that was kind of unsatisfying. I think combined, with stuff of Don Teresi and him not being fleshed out enough, I felt like with the ending, I feel like the ending of the story didn't live up to how good the rest of the story throughout the rest of the game was, and I feel like I could have used some more work. But those are my pros and negatives of the game, and so in conclusion, despite how great my negatives are, I would still recommend this game. Probably not at the full $50 price. I got this on a Black Friday deal, so I got this for really cheap. So I think if you could find this for used, or maybe on a sale, I think this is a good time. It's short. It's only 12 hours. And a lot of times nowadays, games are far too long, so it is refreshing to be able to play and get through the game in just a weekend or a week. So that was nice. But definitely I would recommend this game. And despite my issues with the gameplay and the ending, I think the characters, the story, and the setting, they're able to help you push past the faults of the game and have a really enjoyable time. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this game, and I would give it, as for my score, I'd give it 3.5 stars out of 5, which on my personal scale is a good game. It's not going to blow your mind, or you're not going to be having profound, deep thoughts about it, days, weeks, months later, but you're going to have a solid, good time, and then you'll be able to move on from it. And so I would recommend definitely Mafia: The Old Country. And yeah, that's all I have to say about it. So I would love it if you would subscribe, and comment down below about your thoughts about Mafia: The Old Country, or the video itself, and how I can improve this content. And yeah, just thank you for watching, and have a good day.